Welcome back to our discussion, Mission-Focused Business Leadership and Acquisition Modernization in the U.S. Air Force, sponsored by Appian here on Federal News Network. My guests today are Ben Allen. He's Director of Federal Acquisition Solutions at Appian. We heard from him in the first segment. Now we move to Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wagner, Chief of Contracting Business Systems for the U.S. Air Force. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. Lieutenant Colonel Wagner, good to have you on. Let's talk about the overarching environment that you are working in here, known as mission-focused business leadership. What does that mean in the Air Force, and how does that affect your IT development?
Thanks, Tom. Mission-focused business leadership is about moving just beyond being a business advisor to the acquisition community and really focusing on providing end-to-end business leadership across the entire acquisition program. And what Air Force contracting is doing right now is engaged in transformational change with the ConIT system to support the Air Force mission. Contracting officers are turning dollars into fly, fight, and win, and our business systems are helping them do that. As the name implies, a contract writing system is exactly that. It's a software that contracting professionals use to prepare and sign contracts. And that might seem simple on the surface, but as Ben mentioned in his segment, it's very complex. And the first reason that's really driving that complexity is our many stakeholder responsibilities that we have. Acquisition is a team sport, and there's a lot of players. There's members of the military that we're ultimately providing goods and services to. There's the contracting workforce who uses our software to prepare those documents. There's the contractors themselves that need readable documents to understand and perform those requirements against. And there's leadership at every level, from the unit level all the way through Congress, that requires timely and accurate data. And we have business partners in finance, legal, engineering, small business, the auditing community that all rely on quality data and accurate information to make decisions. And the other reason that's making this really complex is accountability. And our systems have to be compliant with several regulations and standards. And we focus on two main data standards. The first is the purchase request data standard. That's how we get money into the system. And the second is the procurement data standard, which are specific instructions for how a contract writing system should create a document. So you talked earlier about those APIs and how that data flows between systems. And you need that machine readable language to do that. That's that PDS, the procurement document data standard, that helps you do that. And if you look at a regular government contract, it looks like any other document that you would see in Word. But when you look at that PDS standard document, that looks a lot more like computer code. But importantly, that allows for that data transmission system to system. That allows for traceability, accountability, data mining. And Appian's product has really helped us to organize that and build a good system. So using Appian to do that, that commercially available low-code platform that they offer us is what ConIT is built on. And that's had success in the private sector, and we use it too. Our program turns about 5 years old this month from the date we were approved to start, and we went live in 2018. Since then, we've had over 4,000 users come onto the system, and we're at over 100 locations in the operational community.
All right, let me ask you a question going back a notch here. When a contract is created, federal contracts often have dozens, maybe scores of clauses. Some are boilerplate, some have to be in, some have to not be in. How does the system understand what a specific contract related to a specific purchase has to have in it? And can the system have the intelligence that Ben Allen mentioned earlier to know which pieces you actually need in that particular contract?
So I'm glad you asked about that. And this is a major change that we've done with the ConIT platform. So there's a rule that all new contract writing systems have to use a service called the clause logic service, which takes a lot of the clauses that we have in our federal acquisition regulations and automates through a question and answer session what needs to be in the contract and what doesn't, and applies logic to that. What we've done is automate that process as much as possible. So instead of having to go through and answer all of those questions with the interview, we can take information that's already in ConIT, automate the answering of those questions, and then streamline the clause logic interface as much as possible to bring those clauses forward into the final document. It's been a big organizational change management lift that we've had to do, but it's a different way of doing business that will ultimately improve our clauses that we have in the contract.
Sounds like you almost have a super intelligent cut and paste clerk that knows what has to go into each one.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. And that's to go beyond that. That's really what we're trying to do with our RPA technologies. So Ben mentioned some of the RPA tech that we're leaning into. And we deployed our first Air Force-wide RPA and contracting over the summer. It's had rave reviews and cut down hours and hours of work into just a few minutes to take a standardized research document and automate that even more. We want to do more of that and do more integration through ConIT.
And give us a sense of the range of data sources that might be invoked by the ConIT, the contract writing system. And what do you do with all this acquisition data, and how does it get incorporated and become useful and efficient for you?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that. So we interface in a variety of federal family of acquisition systems. SAM was mentioned, wide area workflow, several others that we have to talk to move the mission forward for acquisition. But data is an area where ConIT is really starting to shine, and we're doing a lot of innovation with. So we're always asking the question, what can we do to tip the scales, and where can we cost effectively modernize? And we're answering that with speed and data. We're going a lot faster with ConIT, and our data technology that we've been able to apply to that is really helping us to go fast as well.
Now, we've had a pandemic going on with everyone working remotely, and I imagine that affects the Air Force's contracting staff, which is several tens of thousands of people strong. Can the system accommodate this new age of working, whereas the old monolithic systems maybe not so much?
Absolutely. So, like many agencies, we had to transition very quickly to deal with COVID and transition to telework. So COVID could have slowed us down, but it didn't. And we had to pivot to that telework environment. But ConIT, being a web-based program, helped those 4,000 users make that transition very quickly. And we ran the numbers for the 10 weeks before COVID and when we started teleworking, and the 10 weeks after. And our user logins actually went up 18% after we transitioned to telework. So both the systems and, importantly, our workforce were able to transition very well to continue the contracting mission.
And so from this web interface, all of that back-end work still operates, including the pulling of the data, the pulling of the contract intelligence and the clause intelligence and all of those factors?
Yes, and as we're bringing together data, COVID has also created a great demand for understanding what we're doing and what we're buying. So with ConIT, we have thousands of users entering data every single day, and that data has value. And we want to capitalize on that value and use it to make better decisions and save money. So ConIT is allowing our mission-focused business leaders to conduct near real-time research with modernized business tools. That gives us advanced charting, graphing, drill down capability for our users and our business partners. And our data solutions are also leveraging commercial off-the-shelf technologies that generate great data products and enable that research. So every contract tells a story, and we want to be able to share that story. For COVID, one of the things that we can do is do really close to real-time research. And since everyone's responding to COVID around the Air Force, but different installations are doing different things, if I want to use the keyword of medical services and I type that in, I can see all of my medical services across the Air Force and be able to zero in on the who, what, where, when, and why of why that acquisition happened, and how can I leverage and share that and partner with those other buying organizations to help other areas out across the Air Force.
Good note to take a break on. My guests today are Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wagner, Chief of Contracting Business Systems for the U.S. Air Force. Earlier, we heard from Ben Allen, Director of Federal Acquisition Solutions at Appian. We're going to bring them both back together after this short break. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This discussion is mission-focused business leadership and acquisition modernization in the U.S. Air Force, sponsored by Appian here on Federal News Network.